I'm Emmett, and I've been partaking in a little bit of the Danid. And along our journeys, I'd say my adventuring party has grown pretty tight. We're a functional team, you might say. We rescue the pets, we kill the villagers. We rescue the pets, we save the villagers, we kill the monsters. We even have a whole manor built in our honor. But that's not the only thing we got as reward. We also got enchanted weapons. Now, me being the fabricator that I am, it had been a while since I had just, made a weapon. Like a good old-fashioned, simple weapon, right? So I thought, kind of with the holidays approaching, this was back in, October, I think. I decided it would be a great idea to make everybody's primary weapons. If I sound a little bit facetious when I say that, it's just because, I always do this. I always think I'm giving myself plenty of time, and then it comes very close. Literally, I'm going to hand these weapons out tomorrow. I finished them last night. It wouldn't be the holidays unless I was cramming to get a project done in time, if I'm being honest. On top of that, I've also been in the process of moving out of my parents' house into my house, which is now pretty much done. I thought I ordered a countertop in September, and it's probably gonna come in January. It's a long story. I've begun the process of moving, which is why I am now in this house. All of that is to say, you may see some discontinuity between filming locations. Bear with me, okay? I filmed where I could. I was slowly moving things from one workspace to the other. I will bounce back and forth throughout these videos. On that subject, I plan to separate the videos. Today I'm talking about the melee weapons. Melee? Melee? Mayday? Murray? You know what I mean. First up we have this rock, which is enchanted, so that when he throws it, it will come back to him. This is a ranged weapon. I've already started talking about it. So this is the first one that I started making because it's just a rock. When I say it's just a rock, it's not actually a rock. It's foam, because I work with foam. I don't work with rocks. Unless it's sand. Sometimes I'll mix real sand into a project. That's kind of tiny rocks. So yeah, this is some scrap foam, some foam clay, and a lot of wood varnish. I tried to nonchalantly ask everybody for a description of their weapons. I asked the owner of the rock if he imagined it being rough stone still, or if it has been smoothed or polished along the way, and he told me that due to the rock's loyal service, it deserves a little smoothing and polishing. So, I tried to make it as, finished as possible while still maintaining a little bit of a rock-like chunkiness to it. I didn't want it to just be like a completely smooth sphere. I could have done that, but that wouldn't quite be like a rock. I also wanted it to be kind of shaped in a way so that you can easily grip it and throw it. So it's it's got, this kind of tapered end like that. Speaking of the tapered end though, it was a little bit more tapered at one time. And during that state, when I started to paint it, I had the random idea to stain it with wood stain. I had some leftover wood stain that was too dark for the trim that I was doing in here, and so I didn't know what to do with it. But I thought that maybe if I sanded it down and then stained it, that would make it look more natural. Because the foam that I used was black, and then the clay is gray, so I thought covering it in that and then sanding it down, that would give me that kind of mottled rock look that I like. So when I stained it, that turned it brown, which at first I thought I was okay with because I hadn't decided what color the rock would be. But the shade of brown and the kind of elongated shape that it had kind of looked like a turd. So I rounded it some more and painted it black instead. If you're pooping this, I'm concerned. Yeah, I kind of worked on this in the background while I was working on a lot of the other props. So I just like put a couple layers of wood varnish on and then like just speckle it with black or white or whatever. And then a few more layers of wood varnish, and then sanded it down. It actually required a lot of nuance to not make it lean too far towards one color or the other. And then of course I tried to weather it a little bit to make it look just ever so slightly dirty. Again, just trying to give it a natural look. There is an art to making things look intentionally unintentional. I have not mastered the art yet, but I will get there. Next up we have a sword. A fire sword, to be precise. That's why I had the gem here. When I asked for colors, she said black. Thus, it is black. But I did try to spice up the design elements with sort of a rubbed bronze look. I'll get to that later. First, the construction. There is a plywood slat inside of this thing. The slat only went so far. Originally, I had the blade kind of sticking out here, but the tip was getting much too floppy for what I liked. I didn't want it to like bend and crinkle. You'll hear a lot about that with these series of videos, like making the paint job not crinkle and crack. It's tough with weapons. I tried to leave these relatively unfinished because the more paint you put on it, the more like if you beat it on something, that paint will deteriorate. So usually if I want any weapon to really hold up to abuse, I just don't bother finishing it. These, I tried to find a good middle ground so that it is relatively sturdy. You know, you don't want to hit people too hard. Because if I'm making a sword to be used like actually to fight people, you know, I'll usually make them much bigger so that like there's a lot more cushion to it. This doesn't have a whole lot of cushion. But to finish my thought, since I didn't like how screwed up the tip was getting, I cut it off and made it shorter. The problem with that is though, the handle is now very disproportionately large compared to the blade. This is barely a longsword. It's not technically a longsword. And like, the handle is really long. Granted, I have small hands for a man, so maybe a big, you know, manly man hands will fill this handle up a little more, but I'm giving it to a woman, so I assume that she probably has smaller hands than me. The cross guard, oh yeah, the cross guard was a bit of a hassle. I mean, it wasn't hard, it just, I had an idea to bend some pipe. I cut a notch in the pipe and I bent it, but I forgot the math of how much I wanted to bend it, and so it was like a right angle, basically, and I didn't want that. So I actually just bent it the other way and filled in these corners. The pommel's just a PVC end cap that I wrapped in foam. I found these wooden buttons that like fit perfectly on that PVC cap. But yeah, I stacked up the foam on the sword, floor mat foam. Actually, no, I'm not using the floor mat foam. I'm using the good stuff from Hobby Lobby. It's a little bit denser. Not as soft, though. And I put little ridges of craft foam on it so that when I cut it with the bandsaw, the craft foam gets shaped to kind of make this fuller. The blade was obviously pretty easy to paint. I just painted it silver. I had a brilliant idea at first where I thought I could paint the crossguard gold and then hit it with some black primer and then sand the primer down to reveal the gold beneath. That didn't exactly work, so I just ended up dry brushing the gold on afterwards. The gem took a while, but I wanted there to be a lot of different colors inside of it, so it's okay that it took a while because then I just built up more paint on top of it. But yeah, I wanted it to kind of be a fiery gem to represent the fire enchantment on the sword. And then I just glued some pleather to the handle and sewed up the sides. This is the VIP. I'm really happy with this thing. This was actually the first, well, it wasn't necessarily the first one I started making because I think that was the rock, but this is the first one that I started envisioning. And it worked out pretty great. So the character is a barbarian dwarf. He often references Gimli as sort of a reference, except it's like the drunk pirate Gimli And as such, when I was initially planning it, before I had asked for a physical description of everybody's weapons, I was basically just going to make a knockoff version of Gimli's axe. And I still want to do that someday because there are certain design elements that I do really like about Gimli's axe. Like, I think the squared look is very unique to Middle-earth dwarves, and I really like this sort of, like, what is it? Octagonal, like, back to Corbin style handle that Gimli's axe has. That's not the direction I went, obviously, but I still took certain design cues, like I sanded down the handle into roughly a similar shape, and then this little kind of bronze copper bracket that's holding the blades together, that was taken from Gimli's axe. So it's a bit of a mix and match. There is a PVC pipe inside of it. I wrapped it in foam. I glued a bunch of scrap pieces of foam together, really kind of building them up around the end here. This is basically just Stormbreaker 2.0. I made a Stormbreaker a while back. Do I have that one up here? I don't think I brought Stormbreaker up here yet. It's still in the old shop. But this is entirely foam, and I really like the way that it looks. I like the end, that I was able to get that a little bit more yellow and bright. It really looks like a gnarly branch for a gnarly dwarf. Yeah, he did give me sort of a picture to use as a reference, so I kind of combined what I saw in the picture with what I liked about Gimli's axe, but yeah. Yeah. As I was cutting out the foam for the axe heads, I left a little bit extra material because I knew I wanted to cut it out with the bandsaw, and that way I could get all of these really sharp, clean edges. I even cut the bevel with the bandsaw as well. And the great thing about working with this type of rough-hewn barbarian weapon is that I do not have to be precise about the edge bevel. Usually I'm very particular and not very skilled with like getting this part perfectly smooth and even on both sides, especially like if I'm grinding it with a grinder. But with this one, it's like, I don't need to do that. It's supposed to be this violent, chunky monster. So that's what it is. I tried to leave the metal bits relatively unfinished. Like I said, with the sword, I want you to actually be able to use these to some extent, you know? Don't completely abuse them, you know, but they can take a little bit of abuse. But the handle took a lot of work. After this point, I actually discovered something that I really like to use for wood now. One thing that I noticed, though, with the painting is that usually my instinct, especially when painting metal, is to water down the darker colors so that they sink into all of the cracks and crevices, and then dry brush on the lighter colors so that they catch all of the surface imperfections and things like that. Look like scratches and kind of highlight edges and stuff like that. When doing wood, you kind of want to do the opposite, especially anything that still has some bark on it, because the bark layer is usually darker than whatever's underneath. So I had to kind of train my brain to think the other way around from what I usually do, because that way, like, the lighter colors kind of sink into the cracks and look like the inner wood kind of poking through, and then dry brushing on the darker colors made it look like there was kind of this dark bark texture. So that took me a little while to figure out, but I am very happy with how it turned out. And this one especially, I'm just like I need to have my fun with these things before I give them away tomorrow. I gotta play with them. Oh yeah, one more thing. It has a frost enchantment. That's why there's white on it. I'm turning into Joe Biden. It's frost. Well, that's blood. But the white is supposed to be frost. My back hurts now. Welp, that's all the melee weapons. Except for one. I actually got this one done on time. I'm surprised. This one is mine. I saved it for last because priorities. So I was expecting that I'd have to film this one later. And if that were the case, I was gonna do the whole like, they were all of them deceived, for another one was made bit. But I don't have to do that because I can talk about it now. So yeah, I play a sorcerer. Actually, I've never done the voice, well, I've kind of tried, but I've never done the voice in a session because I get nervous and awkward. We don't roleplay that much, which I'm kind of okay with. I was prepared to roleplay more, so I chose a bit, a joke, I guess, for a character that I thought would allow me to roleplay a little more, but it's, you know, bear with me here. I play Orkin Freeman, an orcish sorcerer. When I first started out playing D&D, I don't know what I'm doing really with the voice. To be honest, it works best if I don't channel Morgan Freeman and I instead channel Zayfrank.
Dear kitten, the first time that Morgan Freeman saw himself crying in the mirror, he became old.
And you freak out and you tell someone, I have a little dick on me and I want your help getting it off.
When I first set out to play D&D, I did not understand the magics. I thought it would be fun to play as a sorcerer whose source of magic was his charisma. Because with a voice like this, how can you not? But magic is complicated and not very effectual at low levels. So I quickly resorted to using my quarterstaff. I'm gonna stop doing the voice. I don't feel like this is working. I've done it! Today's not my day, okay? Maybe I should keep going. Maybe I'll settle into it over time. Yeah, that's the key. I need to stop trying so hard and just start talking and having fun. Alright, so I grabbed my quarterstaff, right? I beat the living crap out of a squid man. That was my first kill. I had never killed anyone with my magical abilities. The first time I defeated an enemy, it was a good old-fashioned stick. We were defending the shores of a seaside resort. We had taken to the bushes and the roofs in a military formation. I was standing on a roof protecting my gnome archer friend. She is tiny. We'll get to her weapon in another video. A squid monster emerged from the waters. He crossed the beach and started to climb our walls. I gripped my quarterstaff with both hands, swung with all my might, and yeeted him off the roof. I've used the quarterstaff ever since. Well, that's not true. I killed the turkey with magic. But yeah, so my enchantment is electricity. Oh yeah, the design of this thing is basically just ripped straight from Screen Tested's interpretation of the Wukong Black Myth staff.
The weight distribution of it is actually really nice.
I don't know the source material or whatever, I just, I saw that video, I thought the staff looked cool. That's kind of what I wanted as a reference. I shared an image of that staff to my DM as a visual reference, and that's kind of what I copied here. I was able to get this done as fast as I did because I realized I actually had a stick, right? This is also why I didn't film as much of this one, because it was kind of already made. A while back, I wanted to try and make a stick by wrapping a piece of CPVC pipe in like that tree repair tape that kind of looks like bark. I mean, I have sticks. I don't know why I thought I needed a fake stick, but that's what I did. And I just never finished it, really. So I finished it, right? I finished wrapping it and I sanded it down to try and remove any of the edges of the tape. And then I, kind of painted it red. I have kind of a reddish-brown primer. I put the end caps on it, which are kind of supposed to look like Tesla coils, because, I wrapped foam around it, and then kind of made these rounded little discs that stack up here, so hopefully it looks like a Tesla coil. And hopefully looking like a Tesla coil is not an egregious anachronism. I feel like I want to say that as Morgan Freeman. Hopefully, making it look like a Tesla coil is not an egregious anachronism. Hopefully, making it look like a Tesla coil is not an egregious anachronism. Not an egregious anachronism. An egregious anachronism is not an egregious anachronism. I'm not an impression person. I just, every now and then, I try to do a voice. Sometimes it works. I digress. Stick. This is me posing for the thumbnail.